going on American Idol yourself?
You know, as much as I respect it, and I think it's a really cool phenomenon that's happened, I think when it initially happened, when people would say, you should do this, you should do that, and it was the no-brainer because I was too old. At that point, they had an age cutoff. And then after a certain point, I was like, I don't want to wait in line. You know, it really and it's just not really, you know, I would see the comments that other people would get, you know, the more pop-oriented stuff. It's just not really, it's not really where my soul lives. As much as I like watching it and you know, and think there's some incredibly talented people, I don't think that's the way for me to make my path, is as incredible as it is. So it never really had a draw to me that way. Like, ooh, I could do that. It wasn't really what I come from, you know, so where my soul lies.
Prior to One Life to Live, had you done any television? Or?
I hadn't. This is the first, yeah.
Okay. How did the role of Nick come about in One Life to Live?
For me?
Yeah.
You know, I don't really know. I mean, I auditioned for it, of course. My first time auditioning for One Life was, you know, almost at this point, about 9 months ago or so. I was auditioning for the role of Skylar. It was the first time I had auditioned for One Life. And I had just finished this thing called the ABC Diversity Showcase, which is an amazing program that ABC does. And they brought me in to audition for Skylar, and you know, I went through the screening, and then went to the producer session toward the end, and that's where I met Frank Valentini. And oddly enough, Brett Claywell was there, and Scott, and I think Crystal was having her screen test then too. So it was kind of a big day. I didn't get the part, needless to say, and the only thing I heard was that, you know, from my agents, I think, was that I was too old, but that they liked me, and you know, whatever. So then down the line, the next time I come to audition for them was for the role of Griffin. This was back in early June, and my agent sent me the breakdown, and it was Caucasian, was the very first word, confident, well-built, you know, successful, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, okay, well, why am I going in for this? I'm, you know, clearly not Caucasian. But I go in, and then I get called to the producer session with Frank and Ron, and standing out there in the lobby with, you know, a half dozen blonde hair, blue-eyed, you know, Adonis types. And I thought, great, what am I, you know, I have nothing to lose, so I'll just go in here and do my thing. And sure enough, I mean, I'm not even off the train getting home, and they called me and they said they want you to do this, they want you to play Griffin. So, you know, I go to pick up my scripts for the first few episodes, and it's Griffin and Kyle and whatnot. And then I get a phone call the night before, oh, we decided to change the name, and his name's going to be Nick. So
I guess you just look like a Nick.
I guess so. You know, I didn't know. I was hanging out with Ron, our head writer, the other day, and he said, I asked him about it, and he said, I don't know. He's like, you just didn't look like a Nick. I didn't look like a Griffin, and, you know, he's like, I just like the name Nick, so.
What does a Griffin look like?
I don't know. Maybe more waspy, you know. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
And then for the longest time, I thought, oh, how cool. You know, they gave me this role, so clearly they see me as this Caucasian, and then by the third or fourth episode, I got a last name, and it clearly was not Caucasian, so it was very funny.
For somebody who hasn't seen the part, how would you describe the character of Nick?
Well, he's really evolved from what you've seen so far, but as opposed to Kyle and Fit, Nick is incredibly grounded, he's incredibly focused, he's a driven person, he knows what he wants, he is incredibly compassionate, you know? So especially in this Kyle and Oliver relationship that people are already familiar with, he comes in as a new entity that people already know is a gay man, a confident, out, well-spoken gay man, who starts dating Kyle. But along with that, he's compassionate towards Oliver and his struggles with coming out and dealing with that, you know. So it's exciting.
It's actually refreshing to see an out gay man on a soap who, I mean, the coming out stories are great, but it's nice to kind of bypass that and you have somebody who's comfortable with themselves.
Yeah.
To see that on screen, so it's nice to see.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't remember that being part of when they auditioned. There was nothing to say that, oh, we're looking for a gay character. You know, it wasn't anywhere in the job description. You know, so it's kind of refreshing that they have foresight like that Ron and Frank just kind of go for the person. I really like that.
Right. You've talked about being an out gay man in interviews.
I have. Yeah.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility to tell the story in a certain way, or?
Oh, definitely. I mean, look, I would feel I always feel the sense of responsibility to tell the story. I mean, I think that's like the number one burden as an actor, and blessing, is that you're honored with these roles to play, and you have to do them to the best of your ability. With this one in particular, being so topical, of course, and of course you want to honor the people whose lives you're directly affecting, and those who down the line you may affect, especially young teenagers that are seeing this, and for the first time they're saying, I'm not somebody who's struggling with it on camera. So far, I'm not a bad guy who happens to be, I'm just a guy, and I'm successful, I teach at the high school, I do all these things. So it's important to me, that it come across well, and that it's a positive thing.
Right. A few years ago, the thought of having any out gay actors on a soap, it seems so foreign.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but in 2009, there are now several.
Right.
All of a sudden, and I think that's amazing visibility.
Right. And it's nice, it's definitely a great feeling not being a novelty. It definitely, and I think coming from the theater world, just being able to walk in and do the work, and Brett and Scott and I talk about this all the time, that the most important thing to us is that it looks honest. It never looks contrived. We're real people having real emotions, that it's the same if I was playing a scene with a woman, or if they were, it's the same. We're going on a date. We're doing this. We're having this argument. The same struggles that everybody else has. So.
Speaking of looking honest, on your first day on set, I think it was your second day on air, you had to completely strip down, which was both nice to see and also very funny. I mean, I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but it was very funny. How was that? What was that like, though, to have to do that first day?
The whole thing was a mix of emotions for me. Obviously, on so many levels, it was my first day at work. I wanted to make a good impression. My first day on television, so I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was trying to listen and fake it, And, of course, being naked. And any of us are self-conscious about our bodies. No matter how much you work out, you always want to, it's out there in celluloid. You want it, to be good. But the interesting thing about that is that we didn't particularly rehearse it, and nobody ever discussed it with me, or it wasn't in the script really. I mean, it said that I was getting undressed, but as far as how far to go, it didn't really say. So when wardrobe brought me underwear options, I thought, oh, wait, are they bringing me underwear options because they're expecting to see? So I just kind of had to figure it out, and we were moving so fast, and it was a matter of timing it. Like normally in a play, you would rehearse that within an inch of its life, to get it right. This is the line. This is where I want to look. This is when I take off my shirt. This is when I take off my underwear. But we just didn't really have that luxury. So I just looked at Scott and I was like, "Hey, you mind if I just go for this?" And he's like, "Yeah, just go for it," And somebody threw me a towel and said, "This is what you're going to end up in." I thought, "Okay, great. Here we go." So I didn't really have time to be nervous about it because I just had to do it until we stopped. And they're like, "That was great. We want to do it again and get it from this angle and get it from that angle." And then I'm standing there, without any clothes on, and somebody runs over to bring me a robe. So that's when I got nervous. Is when I had to get redressed to do it again, and to be like, "Oh shit, I got to do it again?" So.
Well, yeah. Speaking for all your fans, we would like to see all of the angles.
Well, you just might actually. Coming up, there might be some more. So.
Had you ever watched those before, growing up, or?
I think I definitely remember like when I was a little kid and staying with my grandmother in the summers, and she would watch all my children. So I remember having an awareness of it. And then in the summer, when I was probably in junior high, and I was old enough to babysit my little brother, I think like Young and the Restless would come on, and it was easy to get sucked into. But recently, I hadn't been watching them just because I'm not particularly home during the daytime, and I don't have DVR, but I have an awareness of them. So yeah.
The Young and the Restless has a Hispanic gay character now as well, who he's hardly on, but it seems like we're starting to make progress in terms of visibility and having these characters on. So it's a great thing.
Cool.